This video was made possible with the help of NordVPN. More about them at the end of this video. So you're the heads of the US. You've grown comfortable with being the world leader for so long now that you view the US as untouchable. That unlike every other empire in the past, the US empire will never fail. Don't be silly. But then comes along these arrogant Chinese. Out of nowhere in a single generation, these foreigners went from being nobodies to racing to the top of the global stage near us. Their people are getting richer, they're starting to pass us on all sorts of economic indicators, they have so much more power and control over their populace compared to us that's almost unfair. In fact, no other country has ever risen so far, so fast, on so many dimensions of power that it's starting to make us feel rather insecure. They're outshining the master.
The biggest threat to America is not Al-Qaeda, it's not ISIS, it's not Putin, it's not any of these guys, it's China. You really believe that?
I believe it. I think it's the most consequential, existential threat, not just to America, just to democracy the world's ever seen.
Worse yet, you're well aware of what's called Thucydides Trap, where in the last 500 years, whenever there was a rising power threatening a ruling power, it ended in bloodshed 12 out of 16 times. Now, besides the people who profit from war, no one really wants to go to war. It's such a hassle. China has even outright said that it wouldn't win a conventional war with the US, but the history is there, and China has its eyes set on our throne. We have to be prepared for anything, including all-out war with China within the next decade. Now the naive out there will say that war with China is inconceivable, quit fear-mongering. And yet the most impactful events in history are often the most unimaginable ones. The ones where leading up to it, people said that would never happen. Stop being paranoid. And yet, our history books are just a series of wars and the shifting power that followed. Along with a few nice things that happened here and there, war is our nature. So in times like this, in the name of preparedness, Murphy's Law, just as a thought experiment, let's say we need to go to war with China. What would that process look like? Well, if we needed to attack China, theoretically of course, if we needed to deploy troops to destroy them and put them back in their place for threatening the master, the general public would never approve. They'd go all up in arms and protest because they would be the ones fighting it. We need to seduce them to the idea of a modern day world war, no easy feats. We need to make them believe that war is so inevitable, so inexorable that the enemy's just waiting to attack us that, oh well, what can we do? We might as well just attack so we're not sitting ducks.
Rarely, if ever, does a war just kind of fall down from the sky. The foundation needs to be laid and the case is built, often with deception.
And what better way to get the public to buy into the bloodshed than with the time-tested method of war propaganda, just like how we've methodically used it time and time again in the past.
The war propaganda function in the United States is finely tuned, it's sophisticated, and most of all it blends into the media terrain. While the names of the countries changed, and of course each circumstance was different, there were some parallels that cried out for examination.
To preserve freedom and peace.
No one should doubt our desire for peace.
The United States wants peace.
We seek peace. We strive for peace.
As Americans, we like to think that we're not subjected to propaganda from our own government, certainly that we're not subjected to propaganda that's trying to drag the country into war.
Throughout human history, humans needed a way to answer the question of how should I conduct myself in the world to make the most out of their lives. So they used folktales, stories, myths, religion, books, and today, movies. And one theme that has stayed consistent throughout all these myths is the eternal battle between good and evil, protagonist versus antagonist, good guy versus bad guy. And the concept of good fighting evil is so ingrained in us, it's so primal to us that if you can activate it in people, they'll go to the ends of the earth, they'll do whatever they can to defeat evil. This is the first step in our war propaganda machine. In order to get people to not only risk their lives, but to be proud to risk their lives fighting for their nation, they have to believe that they are the mythological good guys, whether that's true or not, and they're fighting to put an end to those evil, barbarian bad guys.
States like these constitute an axis of evil. These are barbaric people, servants of evil, the cult of evil.
A monumental struggle of good versus evil.
but good will prevail.
And you do this with some good old-fashioned character assassination. Get on TV and exaggerate their flaws, find some leverage in their history that you can exploit to make them look evil.
This mad dog of the Middle East,
I find he's not only a barbarian, but he's flaky.
The drug-related, indicted dictator of Panama.
Don't lie, but also leave out some inconvenient truths, anything that makes them look good. A lot of people in the modern West view Hitler as the ultimate symbol of evil, so use the time-tested method of comparing them to Hitler.
President Bush called Saddam Hussein a little Hitler again today.
We're dealing with Hitler revisited. Bin Laden and his terrorist allies have made their intentions as clear as Lenin and Hitler before them.
Basically, do whatever you can to invoke as much fear, hatred, and nationalism into the populace as possible. In the case of China, this is quite literally the easiest part. They have concentration camps, they harvest people's organs, they have the most advanced spying apparatus on the planet, no freedom of speech, no freedom of press. It's like China is handing you this on a silver platter. Along the same lines, when people look in the mirror, they need to believe that they're a good, moral person. If they don't, they'll have an identity crisis and do whatever they can to make them feel whole again. So if people believe that war is immoral, that by going to war they're immoral, they won't be able to look themselves in the mirror and will never support it. So you gotta change this perception by making war look like the most moral, altruistic thing we can do in this situation. Claim that your biggest objective is finding a path to peace, not war, that you've considered all other options, that we don't use force willy-nilly, but the evil enemy has left us with no other choices.
We still seek no wider war.
the United States does not start fights.
America does not seek conflict.
I don't like to use military force.
Our nation enters this conflict reluctantly.
But most importantly, you have to frame war as a path to peace. That we need to fight to spread democracy and freedom to these poor people enslaved by the Chinese government, to liberate them from their vicious dictator.
Our cause of liberty, our cause of freedom, our cause of compassion and understanding.
People want democracy, peace, and the chance for a better life in dignity and freedom.
We want to lift lives around the world, not take them.
Because if people believe that their intentions are good, that they're fighting for something bigger than themselves, killing and being killed is all of a sudden the most altruistic thing you can do. As you start to get the population on the moral high ground, it's safe to start ordering some small-scale military action while we move on to the next step. So you've set the stage, created the enemy in the eyes of the public, made them believe that they're on the moral high ground against these savages. You've transitioned the populace from what? No war with China is gonna happen anytime soon to there's a slight possibility that we might be headed for war. Now we need to gradually transition them from the sentiment of a possibility for war to yeah, we're probably gonna go to war any day now. This is where big media comes in. People have been conditioned to believe that the media is supposed to be independent, that there's freedom of press, that there's supposed to fact check what people tell them. So there's a primal trust in these experts. But you and I know different. See, big media and the government have a symbiotic relationship. We need media to promote our agenda and propaganda while not reporting what we don't want the public to know about. But media is also equally reliant on us, the government. One main reason is that if they don't play ball with us, we won't invite them to press conferences, they won't get special access, we won't send government officials onto their shows. If they don't play ball, their competitors will, which will hit their bottom line. The other main reason is simple: fear. Fear is profitable, fear sells, fear gets eyeballs, clicks, ad revenue. What? We might be going to war? Honey, we have to watch this. Kinda like this video. And where do they go to get new fear to report on? That's right, us. So when you give them new press releases to gradually escalate to the belief that wow, we're gonna go to war anytime now, we're basically handing them money on a silver platter. They're not gonna bat an eye, they're not even gonna fact check you. In fact, they'll be begging you to give them more propaganda to promote, because more propaganda equals more content!
War now seems all but inevitable.
War is inexorable.
Well, I think that's exactly right. War is inevitable, and it is approaching inexorably.
So have every press release be a little bit more worrisome than the last one. Treat it like a great suspenseful movie, and big media would take care of the rest.
Is war with Iraq inevitable right now?
I think it's 95% inevitable.
You, at this point, don't see any other option but war. Do you? I'm asking you, Ambassador.
We're way too far out front in this.
Send us over there, guys. Let's get on with it. Let's get it over with.
As the drumbeat of war crescendos, there's always some pivotal moment that you can use as a catalyst. As the moment where you can say, screw this, we're going to war. For World War II, it was the attack on Pearl Harbor. For Vietnam, it was the Gulf of Tonkin attack. For Iraq, it was WMDs. What will it be for China? Pearl Harbor, that was a genuine catalyst. Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam and WMDs for Iraq, not so much. We had to use a lot of deception, a lot of lies, a lot of leaving out inconvenient facts for those events, which is why when we did go to war, public support dramatically dropped as the facts came out compared to World War II where public support stayed stable. So what's the lesson from this? The more genuine and real the catalyst, the more support you'll maintain after the war starts. But whatever route you take, just make sure you come off appearing absolutely certain about the catalyst that this is it, it's time to go to war. Give people the leader that they need in times of uncertainty like this. Sure, you'll have politicians and smaller media outlets here and there that will question the official story, but no one takes them as seriously as a CNN or New York Times anyways. They'll be the unpatriotic outsiders. Once the story is out, boom! By invoking a sense of good versus evil, by making people feel that they're on the moral high ground and the pursuit of peace and democracy justifies war, and by gradually getting that drumbeat of battle rising with your pals in the media until that one catalyst event, it's finally time to go to war with almost full support of your plebs. But you're not done yet. Just because you got the war started doesn't mean people will stay supportive like we saw in the last step. Again, depending on how truthful you've been this whole time, depending on how credible the enemy is, how well you painted them as a symbol of evil, the more support you'll maintain with this war with China. Keep people's mind off of whether or not you should be at war in the first place by having the media cover the war itself.
Particularly in the early stages, news coverage of war is much more like PR about war.
If people are only seeing the atrocities of war, of course they'll stop supporting it. So control the flow of information the best you can by only showing off your wins, your military might.
At the U.S. Military Command Center in Qatar, a Hollywood set designer was brought in to create a $200,000 backdrop for official war briefings.
Reporters are gonna want to go to the front lines to report, but if they go on their own, they'll end up reporting on the side getting bombed. We can't have that, so let reporters in with open arms so they're on the side with the bombs instead. Make them feel a part of the team, make them bond with the soldiers to make them feel like a soldier. Because soldiers would never betray their fellow brothers now, would they?
It was a gradual process of getting to know and trust each other, and for them, trusting me was knowing I would not blow their objective and get us all shelled with artillery.
Of course, there'll always be anti-war dissenters, so shame them into silence. That how could you? We have brave men and women on the front lines fighting for your freedom, and you can't even show them support? And of course, make sure the public gets it in their head that withdrawing is unacceptable.
We're not leaving so long as I'm the president. That would be a huge mistake.
Our allies would lose confidence in America.
To yield to force in Vietnam would weaken that confidence.
Any sign that says we're going to leave before the job is done simply emboldens terrorists.
A retreat from the United States from Vietnam would be a communist victory, a victory of massive proportions, and would lead to World War III.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you get a country to go to war. Theoretically, of course. But here's the thing, getting a population to go to war takes a lot of planning and coordination in a world that's getting less and less private. And when all this is over, if some pesky journalists are able to trace your digital puppet strings back to you online, you're gonna be screwed. Here's how it works. Whenever you try to access anything over the internet, you start by connecting to your internet service provider first. Think AT&T, Comcast, etc. Your provider then redirects you to whatever nefarious stuff you're trying to connect to online, which means they can see and log everything you do. They may even hand over your browsing history to advertisers or even worse, government agencies. So if you're already willing to plan for a potential war with China, you might as well plan against your online activities getting out to the public. This is where a VPN comes in. It routes everything you do online through a special server, it hides your IP address and encrypts all your traffic to make sure that no outsiders get their hands on your confidential data. And with NordVPN, all you have to do is open the app, press Quick Connect, and you're protected. And for a limited time, NordVPN is offering you guys 70% off the 3-year plan plus an extra month free when you visit nordvpn.org/JakeTran and use the coupon code JakeTran. This is the same VPN I trust when I'm researching stuff like how to money launder, and it becomes even more important when I'm connected to public Wi-Fi, being that my entire business, my passwords, my money, my files are all online. So in short, VPNs are as essential in today's modern world as much as something like your smartphone is, especially when you're trying to start a war. So get your 70% off plus a month free with the link below and support the brands that help make this channel possible.
Welcome to the Watch the End Club. I just got off the phone with some Chinese officials recently, and we've come to an agreement. You guys will get to increase your social credit score when you subscribe, every time you watch a video, every time you leave a like, and every time you leave a comment. So it's a very good collaboration we have going on here, and it will benefit you guys too. So get subscribed for more videos like this every single week for free on the most provocative stuff in the world of business, and get that social credit score up so you don't get thrown into a re-education camp. You can follow me on Instagram at jaketran.io. That's gonna wrap it up for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome. I've been Jake. Get that social credit score up, and I'll see you guys in the next one.